Okay, so heute Abend bespreche ich mal kurz die Wortstellung im Deutschen. So I'm going to briefly talk about word order in German, and I think to do that to the fullest extent possible within these few minutes that I'll be talking to you, we have to talk about grammar a little bit. So ich schreibe erstmal Wortstellung. Word order im Deutschen, in the German. Because I'm aging myself with the cursive. But no matter. So, if we want to talk about word order, first we have to talk a little bit about language in general. So beyond German, just like the concepts of words we have. So every word in a sentence serves a particular purpose. It plays a role within that sentence. I personally like to think of it like if you think of language as a chessboard, you can think of words as the different pieces that you play with, and they have certain rules that they have to follow. Like your queen can move pretty much anywhere, but like a pawn can only move one space at a time, for example. So different types of words are bound to different limitations in English, in German, in any language. So before I really begin then, I just want to show you guys this weird poem by Gertrude Stein. It's the very first poem of her collection, Tender Buttons, a carafe that is a blind glass. They're like very surrealist poems, but I really like some of the phrases in here. So an arrangement in a system to pointing. I really appreciate that phrase as like descriptive of language. So you could have a sentence. It's an arrangement of words in a system to pointing. Language is a system with which we indicate like objects we might be talking about, sensations, historical realities, and so on. The difference is spreading. Okay, so that was really all of that. Now this document, this document, I'll give you guys a link to. This I wrote myself, but I wanted to go over something I cited from a high school Latin textbook. Latin is a very grammatically strict language, so like Latin explanations of grammar I find helpful. So we have three main like Bausteine, or like building blocks of a sentence. So we have nouns, and a noun is a person, a place, or a thing. We have pronouns, which also fall under that category. You would use a pronoun like he, she, it, they, I, you to replace a noun, like I'm Claire. When I use I, I'm referring to Claire. I'm replacing myself, my name, with that pronoun. Adjectives, words of description. Then in the same vein, we have adverbs. So instead of describing a noun, adverbs are going to describe a verb, how you do something. And then verbs, of course, are words of action. So if I'm throwing a ball, the throwing is the action. So let me go back to my little paint thing so we can talk about the roles that words play in a sentence. So the subject, das Subjekt auf Deutsch. Object, we can have a direct or an indirect object, but that's something we'll talk about more in the future. For now, we could just say object. We could say descriptors. Adjectives that are separate from the subject and object, or perhaps they're attached, but we'll see that's not always the case. We might have a prepositional phrase. So Subjekt, Objekt, descriptors, and this kind of belongs to the family of descriptors, but we could say adverbs, which would be describing, then our verb. our action in the sentence. So I think I used the sentence I throw the ball before. So I could say auf Deutsch, ich werfe. Werfen is the word for to throw. Den Ball. I throw the ball. So I have a subject here, the I, the ich. So this is the one doing the action of the verb. And then our object is going to be what's receiving the verb. So the ball is what's being thrown. I am the one doing the throwing. We've got our verb werfen, ich werfe den Ball. Subject, verb, object. So that's just a basic sentence. And we've talked about a few other cases, so I'll go over those quickly as well. We've talked about questions in German. Fragen. And we have two types of questions. One would be open-ended questions. So for example, what are you doing this weekend? These are our W-Fragen, our W questions. Wie heißt du? Wo wohnst du? Woher kommst du? Wohin gehst du? In English, why are you doing that? Why am I making this video? W question. So for those sentences, for these open-ended questions, we have an order of W-Frage, so the W word. Then we have our conjugated verb. And then we might have an object, we might have adverbs, we might have descriptors. But at this level, like at this stage in the game, these are the most important things. So we'll just say other. So I can ask wann, when, gehst du, ins Café. So when go you to the cafe? And I realize now that I actually forgot an element here, and that is the subject. If you're ever not sure about the subject of a question, you want to think about what the answer would be. So I ask, wann gehst du ins Café? So I'm asking, when do you go to the cafe? How would I answer that? I would say, I am going to the cafe. Ich gehe ins Café. At whatever time of day. So I'm answering and I am the subject. I'm the one doing the going. So, wann gehst du? Du is our subject here. So, W-Frage, verb, subject. And then we have the rest. Okay, so ich mache das mal weg. Und wir machen gleich weiter mit Ja oder Nein Fragen. Okay, so second type of questions. Ja oder Nein Fragen. Yes or no. So in English, we would use forms of do. So like, are you singing? I heard something suspicious coming from the room next to me. Was that singing? I'm going to ask my roommate if they were singing. So in German, we would start with the conjugated verb. So konjugiertes Verb. Then we would have our subject. And then if there's an object in the sentence or like other descriptive phrases, those would come afterwards. Say object. So singst du? Or if I go back to that sentence about the cafe, Instead of wann gehst du ins Café, I'm actually not sure if someone is going to the cafe at all. Say, gehst du ins Café? So I've got that conjugated verb first, subject second, and then this is a descriptor of place. Where are we going? Wohin gehen wir? We're going into or to the cafe. So we'll move on from there to talk a little bit about simple sentences. So Aussagen, statements. So I want to say that I'm going to go to the cafe on Wednesday, say am Mittwoch. What time of day? Let's say, what time does one go to the cafe? How about 9 o'clock? That's pretty early. So 9 Uhr. We haven't covered times of day yet, but if you want to talk about a specific time, you would use versus am for days of the week. Oder am Wochenende would be on the weekend. So am Mittwoch 9 Uhr, where are we going? Ins Café. So our verb then is gehen. This is a sentence about going. And who's doing the going? I am, so ich. So then we can identify like these as different parts of the sentence, different elements of speech. So like Verb, gehen, ich, Subjekt. Ins Café, das ist ein Ort, a place. Am Mittwoch ist eine Zeitangabe. It's a time. Same with 9 Uhr. That's more specific. So we have ich, gehen, am Mittwoch 9 Uhr ins Café. So the most important rules with this, if I'm going to say I'm going to the cafe on Wednesday at 9 o'clock, first we need our verb in the second position. And second, we need our subject to come immediately before or immediately after the verb. So subject right before or after verb. So how will that look? Let's take a look. So these are all different elements, and we're going to arrange them. They're arrangements in a system to pointing, as Gertrude Stein would say. So I could start with my subject because I know it goes immediately before or immediately after my conjugated verb. So ich gehe. Then we have this time and place. So in German, if you have descriptors like that, typically they follow a certain order, and that is time, manner, and place. We don't have a manner in this sentence. We're not talking about how I'm going to the cafe, just the fact that I'm going to the cafe at a certain time on a certain day of the week. With times, we're going to move from the less specific to the more specific. So I'll start with Wednesday, and then I'll move to the realm of greater specificity that 9 o'clock is part of. So ich gehe am Mittwoch um 9 Uhr ins Café. So subject, verb, conjugated verb. We have time 1, so our less specific time. So Zeit 1, Zeit 2, das ist die Uhrzeit, the o'clock time, and then we have a place. So I don't necessarily have to start with the ich. I'm welcome to move am Mittwoch before the verb and then have ich right after, because we could also have the subject in the third position. It's really just this verb that everything is kind of orbiting around. So the verb is the sun, or the central star of the German sentence in this case. So I could say am Mittwoch gehe ich um 9 Uhr, at 9 o'clock, ins Café. So here, same sentence, I'm just emphasizing this am Mittwoch more. So I might be talking about what I do on Wednesdays in general, what I'm doing this Wednesday. So am Mittwoch gehe ich um 9 Uhr ins Café. Verb, second position, subject, attached, just like it is here, except it's coming after the verb instead of before. So I broke up this description of time into 2 sections or 2 parts. So we have a day of the week and a clock time. As I said, we start with the less specific, so that's why I've moved am Mittwoch in front of the verb and not um 9 Uhr. So am Mittwoch gehe ich um 9 Uhr ins Café. On Wednesday, go I at 9 o'clock into the cafe, would be the literal translation of that. But that would be very natural sounding. I'm going to the cafe at 9 o'clock on Wednesday. So, ich habe, ich wollte nur noch ein Thema besprechen. Just want to talk about one more topic quickly. So I mentioned adverbs that describe verbs. And we had one at the beginning of this chapter, und zwar gern oder gerne. You can say either, whatever you like better. So where do we put the gerne? I'm going to link you guys to this page in the description. You might need to put this through Google Translate or something, but this is helpful, I find, for rules about adverbs in German. So you can have it at the beginning of a sentence, but gern, it feels wrong. So let's not do that. So mitten im Satz. Adverbs in the middle of your sentence. Maybe you have an object, maybe you don't. Or like other descriptors, I could say I like to go to the cafe, I like to play soccer. There I would have an object, because soccer is being played. So das Adverb steht normalerweise vor dem Akkusativobjekt, aber hinter dem Dativobjekt. So accusative and dative are not something we've gone over yet. We'll go over them in the future. However, what you need to know is that if you have a direct object in your sentence, like Deutsch, if I want to say ich lerne Deutsch. If you have that direct object, you would put the adverb before the object. So ich lerne gern, gladly, Deutsch. That would be how I say I like to learn German. I happily learn German. I gladly learn German. Gern is an adverb. If I wanted to ask a question, do you like to learn German? Lernst du gern Deutsch? Again, I'm putting that gern before Deutsch. So I've got conjugated verb, subject, adverb, and then the adverb is attached to this object of Deutsch. That's what we're learning gladly. So let me just take a look and see if I am forgetting anything. You don't want to put an adverb right in front of a personal pronoun. You put it after the pronoun, but we haven't talked about personal pronouns as objects, so I would say don't worry about that for the moment. So kommt im Satz kein Objekt vor, steht das Adverb direkt hinter dem finiten Verb. So this one would apply to things we've talked about. So if there is no direct object in the sentence, the adverb is after, like right after the verb. So if I wanted to ask, do you like to go to the cafe? I've got my yes or no question form, so I'm going to start with the conjugated gehen. So gehst du oder gehen Sie? Let's use the Sie form. Let's be formal. So gehen Sie gern ins Café? So here we have gern, this is our adverb, and this is as close as it can possibly come to the conjugated verb, because in the German question form we don't have as much freedom. We need verb, subject, adverb, and then we have a place. Also vielleicht noch ein paar Beispiele, maybe a couple more examples. Do you like to play Fußball? Spielst du gern Fußball? Gern is coming before this object of Fußball. So Fußball, soccer, is what's being played. And we're playing gladly. We like to play, or maybe we don't like to play Fußball. Spielst du gern Fußball? Ja. Wir, oder nee, ich. This is not ihr, sondern du. Ich spiele gern Fußball. Und dann sage ich, okay, super. Dann haben wir das gemeinsam. Maybe we have something in common if we both like to play Fußball. So let me think of one without an object. Maybe reisen, so that's a verb we had. We can do arbeiten, to work. Reisen is to travel. So maybe I want to ask someone when they like to travel. Say, wann reisen Sie gern? Maybe I'm talking to many formal people. I'm talking to my colleagues. Wir reisen gern im Sommer. So we have a subject, conjugated verb, adverb, and then a descriptor of, I guess you could say time for im Sommer, in the summer, Zeit. Wir reisen gern im Sommer. We don't have a direct object in this sentence. Like you don't get traveled. One does not get traveled, or we don't travel upon an object, so to speak. So because we don't have an object, we just need that gern to be attached to the verb. It comes right afterwards. And then finally we'll do one with arbeiten. I think this might actually be a sentence in the book. So ich arbeite. oft, nachts und am Wochenende. So I often work at night and on the weekend. Once again, subject, conjugated verb. So oft, often is an adverb. And there's no object in this sentence, like something is not being worked. I'm just saying I work often at night and on the weekend. So we're attaching that adverb to the verb that it belongs to, because often is describing my work. I work often. And then I have descriptors of times. So nachts, at night, und am Wochenende. I believe that was like all we have covered as far as adverbs go. So bei Ergänzung mit Präposition steht das Adverb vor der Präposition. So if you have a prepositional phrase, which would be something like out of whatever, in the whatever, like in the summer, you want it to come before the preposition, which fits with what we just went over. So if you have any questions, feel free to email me or come to my office hours. Another inception moment here with the video program. Aber ansonsten wünsche ich euch einen schönen Tag noch oder was auch immer. Schönen Abend noch.